month of June, when it finally feels like summer in Maine. Summer is important here, not only because it represents a respite from the long winter, but also because of our easterly position. Washington County, nicknamed the Sunrise County, has long been associated with the rising sun. Among the first people here were the Wabanaki, the people of the Dawn Land. Washington County is one of the first places in the continental U.S. to see the sun, which will be of particular importance on June 20th, our summer solstice. In addition to its association with the rising sun, this area is also known for its mystery and seclusion from the outside world. This is what Samuel Adams Drake had to say about it in his 1891 book, Pine Tree Coast. Behold us at last arrived at the place where, figuratively speaking, they pry up the sun with a crowbar, at that elusive and still debatable down east, which is the fruitful source of so many quips and quirks to our transmontane population. This land where they pry up the sun is known to many as Down East Maine. Mainers today may find it surprising that Drake wrote that its location was debatable, but that was the case in the 19th century. The term down east comes from the days of sail, when it was not a place but a direction. The prevailing winds on the coast of New England come from the southwest. So when sailing northeast to Maine, you're sailing with the wind behind you, or downwind. Going down east simply meant you were sailing downwind and to the east. This mistaking a direction for a place led to many jokes. No one knew where it was, except it was just a little further east than wherever you were. Listen to this song published in 1846. There's a famous fabled country never seen by mortal eyes, where the pumpkins they are growing and the sun is said to rise, which man doth not inhabit, neither reptile, bird, or beast, and this famous fabled country is away down east. It is called a land of notions, of applesauce and greens, a paradise of pumpkin pies, a land of pork and beans. But where it is, who knoweth, neither mortal man nor beast. But one thing we're assured of, 'tis away down east. Once a man in Indiana took his bundle in his hand, and he came to New York City to seek this fabled land. But how he stares on learning what is new to him at least, that this famous fabled country is farther down east. Then away he pulls for Boston with all his main and might, and he puts up at the Tremont House, quite sure that all is right. But they tell him in the morning, a curious fact at least, that he hasn't yet began to get away down east. Then he hurries off to Portland with his bundle in his hand, and sees Mount Joy, great joy for him, for this must be the land. Oh, nonsense, man, you're crazy, for doubt not in the least. You'll go a long shot farther ere you find down east. Then away through mud to Bangor, by which he soils his traps. The first that greets his vision is a pyramid of slabs. Why, this says he is Egypt, here's a pyramid at least, and he thought that with a vengeance he has found down east. gracious, yes, he's found it. See how he cuts his pranks. He's sure he can't get farther for the piles of boards and planks. So pompously he questions a pad of humble caste, who tells him he was never yet away down east. But soon he spies a native who was up to snuff, I ween, who pointing o'er a precipice says, "Don't you see something green?" Then off he jumped to rise no more, except he lives on yeast. And this, I think, should be his drink away down east. And now his anxious mother, whose tears will ever run, is ever on the lookout to see the rising sun. But she may strain her eyes in vain, I calculate at least. Her sun is set in regions wet, away down east. Unlike Japan, land of the rising sun, where the sun majestically rises on its own, in down east Maine it needs to be pried up with a crowbar from the rough and rugged end of the earth. I had a college professor tell me, "It's not the edge of the earth, but you can see it from there." This sentiment is not new. In 1862, during the Civil War, George Dyer was assigned to investigate towns that did not send enough men to meet the quotas the Union Army had requested. Dyer reported back on the condition of these towns, explaining this shortage to his general. "Dear General, I am here in my travels, have been to Lubec and to Machiasport, go to Harrington and Addison tomorrow, and back here tomorrow night, when I meet with the wise and select men of Machiasport in solemn council. Then take Cutler and Truscott on my way home next week." The Delinquent Towns, as you will see by inspection of the map, lie along the coast of the county, off the state lines, and scattered about long rocky coves, where they cling to little oases of dirt, like fleas to the unscratchable parts of a dog. In these towns are no taverns and few roads, the inhabitants dwelling at home, receiving no visitors from abroad, and traveling by water. They live on fresh fish in the summer and on salt fish in the winter, wherefore their dialect is fishy. From such a point to such a point is about 3 or 6 lines, i.e. fishing lines, and the tides are the natural demarcations of time. Such a man died yesterday at about half ebb, or just in the turn, or at dead low water. The young men take to the sea and are wanderers until they have spent their prime on drink and strange women in foreign ports, and then they sink into tobacco and kippers. The women stay at home and bear children past belief. A stranger at this time of year, when none but fools travel there, is a marvel. The furthest down east you can get is West Quay Head in Lubec, the easternmost point in the continental U.S. In 1837, Charles Thomas Jackson published his famous geological survey of the state of Maine. He writes about West Quay and its rugged landscape, taking a pause from his scientific description to say this: "There is perhaps no other locality on the whole sea-coast of the United States where the mind is more powerfully affected by the sublimity of rock scenery than at this easternmost extremity of our country. Here are lofty precipices, like dark overhanging battlements, raised high in air amid surf, bidding defiance to the storm. Nor does the changeful state of the atmosphere, with its ever-varying tint from the bright morning or roseate sunset to its thick mantling fogs, detract anything from the beauty of the scenery. There is sublimity even in the sound of the fog bell, as its warning note echoes among the dark caverns and rocky crags, giving notice to the unwary mariner that he sails amid dangers. In the space of a single day, we experience all the vicissitudes to which I have above alluded, and even the pelting of the rain did not damp our admiration of the scenery. The fog bell he describes belongs to the Sunrise County's most iconic landmark, West Quay Head Lighthouse. In 1806, when plans for a lighthouse were approved by Congress, the border between the U.S. and Canada was hotly debated. The construction of a lighthouse on that ground was a political statement. America begins here. But the lighthouse has always been more than a territorial maneuver. The waters surrounding West Quay Head are dangerous due to fog and the treacherous sail rock. Jackson continues. When the dense fog sets in, as happens very frequently, the navigator loses his way, having no landmark by which to steer, and is suddenly dashed upon this rock. His ship bilges, rolls over, and sinks, or is dashed to pieces by the surf, as it were, in a moment before any assistance can reach him. To obviate this danger, a lighthouse was erected, which consists of a lofty tower 90 feet high, and a fog bell was placed near it to give alarm when the light could not be seen. When any vessel approaches these rocks, she fires a gun, and it is immediately answered by the bell, which is kept ringing until she has passed the danger. Mr. Godfrey, the lighthouse keeper, informs me that he is required to ring the bell 100 days in the year, and especially during the months of June, July, and August. So it's in the brightest, longest days of summer that the light is most needed, when the keeper is most often called upon to pry up the sun for those passing through the unnavigable fog. Today, West Quay Head is a state park, known not only for its location, but also for its alpine bog, also noted by Jackson. We'll look in particular at one of the unusual plants that grows there, the sundew. The sundew is a carnivorous plant that lives in poor, wet soil. At West Quay Head, it's found in the sphagnum bog among mosses and spruce trees so stunted that at 80 years old, they reach about 6 feet tall. The leaves of the sundew are only a few millimeters wide and covered with red hair-like structures. These little hairs produce a clear, sticky liquid that beads on the end like a drop of dew and glistens in the sun, hence the name sundew. Because of the poor soil they grow in, sundews have to get nitrogen from other sources, mainly insects. When a small insect lands on a sundew, it is quickly covered with the sticky material. When the plant detects its movement, the small red hairs bend inward, further trapping its prey. Then, as the insect decomposes, the plant absorbs the nutrients. If you go to see these plants, you may want to bring a magnifying glass. And remember, please be careful, they are fragile. Everything needs a beginning, a story, a poem, a piece of music, even a country. And in our minds, at least if you live in Maine, America starts at West Quay Head. Here is where they pry up the sun for a whole nation, and on foggy days, there's a lighthouse to remedy the darkness. Naturally, many people come to West Quay Head for the first sunrise of the new year, Easter sunrise services, and the summer solstice. It's a natural place to celebrate new beginnings and the promise of a safe passage. The sun doesn't come to us quickly or easily. We know that from long winter nights and days when the fog is thick enough to walk across. But away down east in the Sunrise County, there is much to celebrate, in sun or fog alike. We'll leave you with this excerpt from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, The Lighthouse. They come forth from the darkness, and their sails gleam for a moment only in the blaze, and eager faces as the light unveils gaze at the tower and vanish while they gaze. The mariner remembers when a child, on his first voyage, he saw it fade and sink, and when returning from adventures wild, he saw it rise again o'er ocean's brink. Steadfast, serene, immovable, the same, year after year, through all the silent night, burns on forevermore that quenchless flame, shines on that inextinguishable light.